Now let's welcome our main speaker tonight, Denny.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
That's perfect, yeah. Except there isn't enough room up here for my big, yeah, there is. Hi, everybody. My name's Denny, and I'm an alcoholic. It's really good to be here again. Been here a couple of times. This is a good feeling clubhouse. And first of all, I want to thank Patty for inviting me down. Thank you, Patty. And let me see. I want to welcome the newcomers. Anybody that's new out there at Alcoholics Anonymous, welcome. You know, I really hope you find hear what I found here, because it really made the difference in my life. Congratulate those people that took chips tonight. And you know, here we are on a Sunday night. We're not in the bar, man. Not in the bar. I know when I stopped drinking and using, a couple of guys went to window P, man. They had to go on the unemployment line, because I kept a lot of people running, you know. And it's thanks, Tim, for opening up. You know, I used to be, you know, I was drinking, I was a rocket scientist sometimes. Now I finally met one. But boy, I was a... You know how you just take on, yeah, sure, I put planes up on the moon, you know. I designed this, I designed that. I'll do brain surgery on you if you hang around me long enough, you know. But I was one of those drunks that just had way too much fun. And, you know, you're supposed to get a lifetime full of booze, marijuana, cocaine, all that. So you're supposed to get a lifetime supply. And if you're okay, it'll last you a lifetime. Mine ran out early, so I guess I was doing something wrong. I was a pig one more time, and I was a pig in my drinking. So when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I said, let me be a pig here too. I want to get all that I can get out of this deal, and so far I have, you know. Alcoholics Anonymous is probably the only thing that I did right in my life, and I love everything about Alcoholics Anonymous. I love being here with you on a Sunday night. I love going to meetings. I never had the kind of fun that I have just going to a meeting and listen to some guy's story talking about throwing up and lying and all of the shit that we all go through and laugh. I've never had that much fun in a bar. And it's a lot cheaper too, you know. I mean, my sponsor sat me down when I was about 6 months sober, and he said, now when you were trying not to drink and trying not to drug, I mean, I know you have to drink a little bit and drug a little bit every day, but when you were trying not to, how much did you spend on a good day? And I said, well, if I was really being good, I guess, till you buy a few of this and a few of that, maybe 35 bucks, you know. And then we said, then we multiplied that times 7 times, then that's 1 week times 4 times, that's a month, and then how long you been doing that? And I said, holy shit. I mean, that amount of money just builds up to like, so time I was sober for 6 months, I was glad, man. I was saving more than I was earning, you know. And you know, if you're sitting in here tonight and you're not quite sure if you're alcoholic, you know, well, a good way to tell if you're alcoholic is if you're spending money that you don't have to buy things that you don't need to impress people that you don't like, you might be one of us. So the mind of an alcoholic is a brilliant thing, and we really we fine-tune that bugger, you know. So let me tell you what it was like for me, though. I've been sober a little over 10 years now. I just turned 10 in January the 2nd, and I've been married to the same woman for 35 years. So that leaves 25 years unaccounted for, you know. You can imagine what some of those were like. The nice part about Alcoholics Anonymous is I got to give my wife the guy that she married. I got to give that guy back to her, you know. Because some of those years were good, some were successful, some were good. And then someone, alcohol comes along and says, this is the way it's going to be. We have no choice over it. So let me tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And in the beginning, I grew up in eastern Pennsylvania, over in a place near, the nearest city was, if you might know, is Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton. So I was a little town just north of that, and the coal regions were right there, and the Bethlehem steel mills. And the guys either worked in the coal mines or in the Bethlehem steel mills. And we didn't have bars, we had taverns. You know, and the guys would come in there after work, and you get, for 35 cents, you get a shot of Christian Brothers brandy and a glass of beer, draft beer. And it was like mother's milk, that draft beer. There was something special about it, I must tell you. And so for 35 cents, you get that shot of Christian Brothers brandy, a short beer, and then you get a hard-boiled egg pickled in red beet juice, and then a slice of hot bologna. Man, you had enough gas to fly to Cleveland. But that's the way I learned how to drink with those guys, you know, and then you had to stay fit, so there was always that shuffleboard, you know, sprinkle some stuff down there and play that barroom Olympics, you know, some darts and some shuffleboard, and you try to get a half a bag on. For $5, man, you could get really loaded. You could really get trashed. And so anyway, I come from a family that had no alcoholism in it. I made this all up on my own. This is just my scheme of things, you know. My dad, I never saw him drunk. My granddad used to like to drink, but I never saw him drunk like I used to get, even when I didn't want to get drunk, you know. He just liked to have a few drinks once in a while, and then there'd be weeks and months without a drink. So I can't blame my alcoholism on my family. This was all me, you know. And growing up, my family was immersed in the church. They didn't just go to church, they were immersed in it. My father was a deacon, my grandfather an elder, my mother was the church secretary, my sister, my brother, and my grandmother all sang on the church choir, you know. And I had 13 years of perfect attendance. You know, they give you a 1-year badge after you make Sunday school every Sunday for a year. They give you like this round pin, and then every year after there's a bar that they attach to it. So I mean, I had 13 years. I used to walk around like this damn thing was so heavy, you know, and I didn't want to be there because I'm a musician. I'm a drummer by trade. When I was 13 years old, I was working in the gin mills. So Saturday night, I'd get home 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. My mom would come in the morning. She'd kick the bed. Get up, you're going to church, God damn it. I went, there's a little mixed message here, Mom, you know. But I'd get up and I'd go to Sunday school, and you know, the best I could do, though, was to steal money out of the collection plate at that time. That was I really didn't want to be there. I had this God crammed down my throat, but I got the job where I'd collect all the Sunday school group's offerings, take it down to the church office, steal a quarter, go across the street, have a smoke and a Coke, and wait till it was all over. And then I'd have to go back and sit in church. Now, my job in church was sit in the back with my granddad, because every once in a great while, he'd shoot down to the American Legion home. Between Sunday school and church, there was 10 minutes, he'd go down, toss back a shot in the beer, and he'd come back and he'd fall asleep in the back of church. He'd start snoring, the choir loft, go, wake him up, and I'd have to wake Granddad up. Now, I thought he was the coolest. So, one of the first mistakes I made, but I did. I love my granddad for that, and I thought, he can get away with this, why can't I get away with this? And anyway, I had a lot of fun as a kid, and you know, the first time I took a drink, it made me feel better. I always felt a little different. The drink made me feel okay. In fact, I had so much fun that when I finished the 11th grade, they asked me to stay and do the 11th grade again so I could show the people behind me how to have that much fun. So I stuck around. I was being of service at an early age, you know. Then I got out of school, and it was time for Vietnam. The Navy was about to, or service was about to draft me, and I said, what the hell are they going to do with a drummer in Vietnam? So I went to Washington, D.C., and I got an audition to the Navy School of Music program. So I was in the service and just playing the drums. I never have to carry a gun or any of that stuff. I would have shot myself probably. So go to the school, and they put me in a special band that goes down to South America. We're touring South America on a ship, you know, like goodwill to our right. If only they would have seen the goodwill we were passing out to the girls. I mean, so you know, but the booze is still working. You get off the ship, you go into these foreign cities, and you're having some Vino Tintos or Pisco Sours or all of this stuff. No longer a shot in the beer. Now I'm starting to learn about some shit here, you know. I'm having some good times drinking. And I'm only 19, 20 years old, you know, just still a baby and stuff. And so it's working out fine. Now my last, you call it stationing? When you were talking about the Navy, where they put you someplace, see, I was terrible with the stationing. Last job that I had in the Navy, put it that way, was in the south of France. I'm stationed on the French Riviera in the Admiral of the Sixth Fleet's band. We're stationed on a ship in the harbor parked next to Onassis's yacht. And we'd get up in the morning, we'd play the Star Spangled Banner at 8 o'clock, raise the colors, you know. And they said, guys, you don't have to do that anymore. You're waking the tourists. So we used to piss the tourists off, getting them up so early with this, you know. So they said, you guys don't have to show up for, come back every 4 days. So now we're all living in the south of France. We have apartments, just the band now. We all have apartments in Nice, France. We have civilian clothing. We're, you know, a bottle of Chivas Regal from the store cost $3. A carton of cigarette was $1. I mean, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. You know, I had French girlfriends that didn't understand what I was talking about, which is even better. You know, I could talk my bullshit, and they said, I married one. I'm still married to her. Still married to her. So anyway, but now I'm learning how to drink better. You know, I'm drinking red wine and cognac and learning how to drink like a gentleman, you know. So that went on for a little while. Anyway. Got out of the service, brought my wife back with me. We got married when I brought her over to the States. We got married, went into New York to start my career. And there I'm meeting all my heroes. All of these guys that I listened to on records, you know, all my heroes were guys like Elvin Jones and all of these incredible jazz musicians that I just thought that they were so, you know, I'm meeting all of these guys and they all got needles hanging out their arms, man. They're so drunk they don't know who the hell they are, and I'm looking at them and I'm saying, if that's what you got to do to make that kind of music, where do I get in line? You know, I would have done anything to be with, and that's where it all started for me. I started hanging out with all these, playing in the jazz clubs and doing a little bit of weekend heroin, you know, just enough to keep the Joneses away. You know, I never really got strung out. I was a bit of a pussy for that, but I screwed around with a little bit of pot, a little bit of coke, a little bit, always drinking, you know. And I got very successful very early, and I'm in the studios now. From the jazz clubs, I get called right into the studios. I start working, and I'm doing like TV commercials and record albums and stuff. We recorded with a lot of famous people in those days, and we'd in the morning we'd start at 9 o'clock in the morning. We'd have a TV commercial at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, maybe 12 or 1 o'clock. They'd book you for an hour. You'd be done in 40 minutes. Because you only do a 60-second TV commercial. You go in, you knock it out, boom, you shoot right at... Well, all the studios were in a 5-block area, and there was a bar right in the middle of it that we all hung out at. So you'd run into the bar, you'd smoke a joint, slam on a cognac, borrow some money, pay off, buy some dope, whatever you had to do, sign a check. You know, it was like our headquarters. And in those days, this was 1967, and we were putting in 18-hour days, you know, and the only way you can put that kind of a day in 6 days a week is if you have a little help, you know. So that's this cocaine thing came along. Some of the guys started doing it, and they said, why don't you try this? You know, you can stay awake longer. And, you know, they were telling us at that time that cocaine wasn't even addictive. It was just nature's way of telling you you're making too much money. So, you know, I started doing cocaine, and, you know, this is working along pretty good. I'm making a lot of money. I'm successful, and things are going really well. And you know, you rush home at night, you take a couple of Valiums, smoke 2 or 3 joints, have 5 bubbles on a bottle of cognac, try to knock yourself out, because you're going to get up in the morning and off you go again. You know, and it was hard, man. It was a hard way to live. So this guy from England comes to New York to make a record. He's like a major guy, and he looked at some of the musicians in New York, and he liked me, and he hired me to do this record. So it was really nice. It was a feather in my cap. Boom, I do the record. The record is very successful. About 3 months after the record comes out, he calls me and he says, would you and your wife like to, you know, my wife is French, so we go to France every year or two to see her family. He said, are you coming to Europe this year? And I said, yeah, we plan to. And he said, why don't you and your wife come up to, he had a farm in Scotland. He said, why don't you come up and, you know, just hang out in Scotland a little bit. I thought, that sounds good. I've never been to Scotland. So we went over there, and while we were there just hanging out, he laid it on us. He said, I'd like to form a band. Are you interested? And I thought, yeah, I'm interested. I don't have to do that 18-hour day anymore. I can have an easy life, rock and roll band, you know, star, lots of money, little work. That's for me. So we pack everything up, and we leave New York, and we come over there. We set up shop in England, and he made a promise to us that we were all going to be part of this thing. You know, we're all going to make some good money. And this was the kind of money that should have taken care of my wife and I for the rest of our lives, really. And We're there, we're doing the thing, we're doing tours, we're doing recording albums, we're selling millions of records, and the money isn't coming. He has some other problems with his old band. And, you know, just times are getting weird. You know, we're living on a small retainer and stuff like this, and the guys are coming over to my pad at night, and we're getting drunk, and we're saying, what's going on here? We're sitting around bitching all the time. Anyway, I stayed there 3 years like that, maybe 3 years. And I took about as much as I could take, and I started missing New York. I started missing playing with I started missing a lot of stuff, and I said, this is screwed. This guy's never going to pay us. I'm leaving. And I just made that decision right then and there. Screw this. I picked up the phone, and it was really the bad time to do it too. I quit when I would really hurt him the most by showing him out. You know, that's one thing about alcoholism. If you get me, I'll get you. I'll find a way. I'll find a way to get you, but you better not fuck with me, because you know, and that's this part of this thinking that alcoholics get. So anyway, I heard him when I left. I really did. And I went back to the States, and I started in with my career again, you know, but this time my alcoholism had taken on a different aspect. Now I'm drinking. Every drink I'm drinking at him. I'll show you. I'll show you. You know, you're going to hear in Alcoholics Anonymous how resentment is the #1 offender. The big book talks about it all the time. It says it has the power to kill us, you know. And resentment is taking poison and expecting someone else to die. That's the insanity of it. Resentment, you know, Tim talked about it beautifully too, you know. Resentment is just, it's the #1 offender. It has the power to kill us, you know. So here I am just resenting this guy, and I'm wasting all of these beautiful moments in my life. I'm letting life slide by, and all I'm doing is... So anyway, we come out to California, and I figured with my credentials and everything that California would open its arms, and I'd go right to work and have a nice life out here. Anyway, we get out here, and the music world out here says, who the hell are you, and who sent for you? Now I got 2 resentments. So now it's starting to get nasty, you know, and my wife starts working because I'm busy drinking. I don't know any other ways of dealing with my problems but drinking. And a good day for me was, I smoke a lot of pot too, but I used to get up, roll up, throw up, and then give up. You know, I'll try it tomorrow, but today I'm going to I'd grab my burrito, and I'd run up to the bar that I used to hang out at 10:40 in the morning, and I'd sit there and I'd just... Time 10:40, come on. I'd slam burritos and beers in the morning. By afternoon, OB, my buddy OB used to drink up there with me too. Man, by noon I wanted to be drinking Stoli. I wanted to be out, you know. So by 6:30, when my wife came home from work, I was such a nice guy, I wanted to be there for her, you know. When she came home from work, a perfect day for her would be to find my sorry ass asleep. If I'm passed out on the couch, that's a successful day. She doesn't have to deal with me. So I'd wake up 3 or 4 in the morning, you know, oh shit, I did it again, you know, come out of a blackout, slither into bed, you know, try not to wake her. And she'd get up for work in the morning at 5:40, and I never knew how a woman could make so much noise just getting dressed, you know. It was just enough noise to wake my sorry ass up and give me that look. Some of you guys know that look. You know what, I didn't want to act like that, I really didn't, but I had no choice, you know. It was just, alcoholism had me, man. It had me by the throat. So I went to my family doctor at one point. I said, Ralph, I got a problem. I got a problem with booze. And he said, if you have a real problem with booze, there's only one thing that works, and that's Alcoholics Anonymous. So I said, what else do you got? So I tried acupuncture. Did that for 6 months. Then I tried hypnosis. Then you know, but I wasn't ready to give it up. You know, I just couldn't imagine life without that drink, or without, you know, I couldn't imagine a movie without a joint, or sex without all of that shit, you know. I just couldn't imagine life without it, and it had ceased to become a luxury, like the book says. It had become my master. It was telling me what was coming next. So at that point in time, I knew there was nothing left for me to do except go to Alcoholics. Well, actually, something did happen before that. Now here I've got this horrible career of drinking and screwing up just when the right... opportunity comes along, I'll drink just at the right time to screw it up real good, right? So now, it's 1986, and I'm playing golf with a buddy, and I start getting chest pains. Now I said, this could be nasty, and I called the doctor again. I said, I'm getting this kind of feeling. He said, we're going to have to take you in the hospital and take a look at this. So he's got me in the hospital, and he says, we're going to give you what we call an angiogram. We squirt some dye in your heart, and we see if, if the arteries are open. So he's got you really good and screwed up on hospital dope, so you don't care what he's doing to you, And you're awake, and your heart monitors are on this thing there. I'm joking with him and stuff. And he says, we found a blockage here, and we're going to have to fix it. We're going to do what they call a balloon angioplasty. They're going to open up the artery, and hopefully you'll be fine. So he says, all right, we got a pacemaker on you now. We got everything. You're covered. Don't worry about it. We got you covered. We're going to open up the balloon now, and everything should be okay. And no more than he said that, the nurse says, he's going, he's gone. And I died. I went on the other side for a minute, A lot of alcoholics have done that, Every time I share at these meetings, like half dozen people will be going, yeah, I was there too, It's nothing out of the ordinary for us. So, there I am doing one of these, looking down at my body on the table. And wham, they bring me back, So that weekend, I was in 3 days. They fixed it. Everything's fine. That weekend, my buddy sends a limousine to take us home from the hospital. He had a limo company, so he sends a car. It's 86. It was our 20th anniversary. I just had a near-death experience, and it was Thanksgiving. So they sent him a car, right? So now, before I left, I said to my doctor, I said, Ralph, or Steve, the other guy, the heart guy, I said, Steve, what can I, come on, you know me. What can I do now? He says, never again cocaine. All right, what about, he said, well, he says, I know you're going to do it, so be real careful because it speeds up the heart rate, and I don't want to see you back here again. I said, okay, I'll be careful. I said, what about booze? What about drinking? He goes, well, you can have 1 or 2 max glasses of white wine because white wine that's all though, just white wine. It's good for the circulation. So I said, okay. So on the way home from the hospital, Thanksgiving, 20th anniversary, near-death experience, limousine, I stopped at Vendome for 2 bottles of circulation. I want to make sure I got that right, man. He's got my attention now. And then there was a phone in the car, so I had to use that phone. So I pick up the phone and I say, my guy, I said, I'm going to stop by about a little bag of weed. So now for the next couple of years, it's 1 glass of wine and that's it, It was awful. Don't ever tease me like that again, really. So anyway, I spent way too much time on my drunk-a-log. I'd like to tell you what happened to me when I started working the steps. I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I found a sponsor. He said to me, I tell you what, why don't you call me every day for 7 days? Let's just get to know each other. If you miss a day, we're going to start all over again. So I said, okay, I can do that. Started calling this guy on a regular basis, and he asked me to say a prayer in the morning when I get up. Didn't ask me if I believed in God. He said, I just want you to say, I'm powerless, my life's unmanageable, but I know you're going to restore me to sanity, so I'm going to turn my life and my will over you today. Boom. I can do that. What I didn't know was I was working those first 3 steps. So now I got those first 3 steps going, and I'm not drinking, and things are starting to clear up, the fog is lifting, and I'm starting to feel good about who I am now. And I see guys slipping in and out of the room, and I'm saying, this 4th step seems like it's important, And then an old-timer got in my face and said, kid, you'll never do a 4th step, you'll drink before you do a 4th step. I said, oh yeah, I'll show you. That's all it took, just dare me. Called my sponsor, I went up to his house. That's when the miracle began for me, the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. 2 guys sitting down at the kitchen table, big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. He read me chapter 5, just like we read it at every meeting, through the A, B's, and C's, the 3 pertinent ideas God could and would have sought. He's reading on, and that chapter is called How It Works because it's exactly how it works. He says, look, alcoholics have to cover 3 areas: resentments, fears, and sexual problems. We're going to make a list on each one of these because we've all got them. And once you get rid of these, it's going to be the freedom step that allows you to accept this program and get on with your treatment of the disease of alcoholism. I said, really? He says, yeah. So he also showed me in that big book that they told me, the people that wrote that big book said, if we don't do this fourth step, it's vital, crucial, and infinitely grave. That's like big words for 1939. That's tough language for these guys. Vital, crucial, and infinitely grave. If we don't do this inventory, we are sure to drink again. They're not screwing around about that either. We are sure to drink again, and for us to drink is to die. So I said, well, I think they mean business. I better learn how to do this stuff. And they also said that if you do it, in doing it, you're building an archway through which to pass a free man. That really got my attention. I thought, that's good stuff right there. So he said, let's get a piece of paper out and I'll show you how to do this resentment thing. So I got a piece of paper out. He said, draw a line here and a line here. I said, okay, in that first one, do you have any resentments? I said, geez, not that I can think of. He said, well, what about that guy in England? I said, oh yeah, okay. Put his name down, put his name down. The cause of the resentment, well, he promised me all of this money. I worked, I didn't get paid. Okay, there's the cause. He said, now, did this resentment affect your self-esteem? I said, sure did. I thought I was a loser. Did it affect your pocketbook? I said, were you listening? He said, did it affect your ambition? I said, sure, I was afraid that it might happen again. Did it affect your personal relationships? Yeah, in fact, I'm cynical, I'm bitter with everybody. Did it affect your sex? Of course, everything affects your sex, you know. So now I got these 5 areas in my life. It's on the bottom of page 64 if you want to look this up in the big book. It's great shit. You know, 64 through 69 is all you got to read, man. That's a very small price to pay for the freedom that you get from it. And it talks about these resentments affect us in 5 ways: self-esteem, pocketbook, ambition, personal relationship, and sex. Now he says, turn the paper over, and on the top I want you to write, now, what is the fault in Denny? That if God would just come along and pluck it out of him, he wouldn't have these resentments. I said, wait a minute. I mean, I worked for this guy. I moved to England. I did all of this shit. How can I have a part in this? He said, we don't care about him. He's not the drunk. You're the drunk. We're looking at your inventory. Let's be tough and Denny here. Well, let me see. Well, I never really pulled a guy aside and said, hey, I need a contract. I guess that would make me irresponsible. Good one to start. So now I got irresponsible. And when I'm irresponsible, that usually is because it's a little fear of confrontation. So I put down fear of confrontation. When I'm in that frame of mind, next step on the hit parade is silent scorn. I'll freeze your ass right out. Then I go to emotional blackmail, character assassination, unreasonable expectations, and I'm off. That's a good day. That's my character defects have good hold of me, you know. And then this disease of self that talks about in the big book on page 62, it talks about this is a condition of self where we're selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, self-righteous, self-delusion, and self-pity. That's what happens to us, you know. That's the condition that this disease leads us to. So, all right, I got my inventory started. I got some resentments going down the fear list. The next page, it talks 67 and 68. It's talking about this list. It tells me that alcoholics are driven by 100 forms of fear, fancied or real. That means if we don't have a real fear, we'll make one up. Again, the brilliant mind of an alcoholic, you know. We're only comfortable when we're afraid of something. So it tells me I got to put all these fears down on a piece of paper too. Just write them down. And it tells me that, here's one of the greatest sentences in the big book. It says, when we write these things down and we ask God to remove the fear, immediately we commence to outgrow the fear. Immediately we commence to outgrow the fear. Not poof, it's gone. But immediately we commence to outgrow it. So that shit doesn't have the power to send me back to that bar anymore, and I'll have a double, you know. If my fears are being taken care of by God, my character defects are being taken care of by God, it's a little bit easier to stay sober. Now the sexual inventory, in fact, you know, they know how to get our attention. They put the sexual inventory on page 69. So I'm reading about that, you know, and there were years in the bands when, you know, I wasn't too proud of it, but I was unfaithful to my wife a couple of times, you know. I figured if I was away for more than a month and I was in another continent, it was okay to be unfaithful, you know. That was some of the crazy thinking then. Those things, though, those little slips, you know, were the kind of things that would just send me back to that bar, too, so I had to process those. And I had to write them down, and I have to answer the questions that they ask in the big book. They say, where was I selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Where am I selfish? I just wanted a little strange. Where am I dishonest? Well, I didn't tell her I was married. Where am I inconsiderate? I didn't give a shit what she felt like in the morning when she got up, you know. So there I was. I was selfish, dishonest, and inconsiderate. And then the rest of the 7 questions on the sexual inventory are, where could I have unjustifiably aroused suspicion, bitterness, and jealousy? Just everywhere. Every time I left the house, my wife thought, oh God, what's next? Because I wasn't myself. I was a drunk. Alcohol ran my life. I had no part in it. I was just there. So I put all of this stuff down. Now I've got my inventory complete, spent some time writing it, took a long time writing it, read it to my sponsor. The freedom came, you know. I got all my character defects. I know what's wrong with me. I got my fears and I got my unsolvable sexual problems, and I'm giving them all to God. So in doing, that's the action steps of this program. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. If I'm willing to put somebody's name on a piece of paper to make amends to them, usually that situation will come up where I get a chance to make that amend. They're the action loop, and the rest of the steps all stem out of that. You know, the 10th step is nothing for me but a little 4th step. Instead of a huge pile of shit, it's a little daily pile of shit that's easy to take care of. 5 minutes writing. Call your sponsor. Read the resentment, the fear, the whatever to him. Find my character defects. He always used to love to just put in the ones that I miss, you know, like, well, didn't you forget about this grandiosity here, you know? Or some of my other favorite character defects. I've got a whole list of defects, by the way. If you ever need defects, call me up. I'll give you a list of them. But that's what gave me the x-ray of my disease. I got to find out who I am, why I am, and it allowed me to accept my disease of alcoholism and what I needed to do to treat it. So now in the amends step, I went back to Pennsylvania for my mom was having a problem. She had an aorta that had an aneurysm on it, and it was a bubble on the pipe that went into the heart, and she was gonna serious problem, and she was gonna have this nasty surgery. She called me, and I said, she was scared, and I said, Mom, if only you were an alcoholic. We have ways of dealing with that. And she says, what do you do? And my mom, you know, she was always worried about me because I drank like such an idiot, man, and she saw it at the family gatherings and this and that. She was always worried about me. And I said, well, in Alcoholics Anonymous, we just talk to God, say, please remove this horrible fear and turn my attention as to what you would have me do or be instead. And she started doing this. She started actually doing what we do because she was overrun with fear. Now the doctor came along and postponed that surgery for a month, just when she was ready to have this nasty surgery that could have been the end of her life. And she went from fear to terror. Now I'm talking to her every day, and I'm giving her all my best shit, all the AA stuff that you give me, man. I'm just giving it to her, you know, and she's doing it. I know she's doing this stuff, and I fly home for the surgery, and she didn't make it through the surgery. She died on the table. And so we went up to the house a couple of days later, and we're sorting through some of her stuff to get ready for the funeral. And I found a diary, and in the diary it said how her son and his wonderful program of Alcoholics Anonymous made the last days of her life so much better than they could have been, you know. And for me to make that kind of an amends at that level, you know, after all that I disappointed my mom with, you know, just, I'm way overpaid. I'm way overpaid that a lifetime of cheating, lying, throwing up, and all the shit that I went through, that I would get a gift like this, you know. It was just amazing. And then I went down to the funeral home, and before we put my mom in the ground, I had my 5-year medallion at the time. And I took my medallion, and I put it in my mom's hand. I closed her hand, and then I closed the coffin. And I want to remember where that medallion is, you know. Next time I want to go back to that bar and start acting a fool again, I want to remember where I left that medallion. Because my mom had a sober son when she left this planet, you know. And if I stay sober for just that reason alone, that's good enough for me, you know. That guy in England, I had to make amends to him too. Even though he didn't pay me, I left in a really shitty way. And I left so I could inflict as much pain on the way out as I thought he deserves. So I had to make an effort to get in touch with him again, and I got in touch with him, and we talked, and I said how sorry I was, and is there anything I can do to make this right, you know? Today this guy's a billionaire, you know, he's got more money than he knows what to do with. And I had to do that, clean my side of the street without expecting a check. If I'm never going to get paid, so be it. And I really had to believe that in my heart too. So I did that, and then a couple of years ago, he lost his wife to breast cancer. And out of the blue, we get it. You know, I was talking to him once or twice a year, just trying to remain friends with him. But out of the blue, we get an invite to the memorial in New York. We fly into the memorial, and I said, yeah, they'll stick us in the back of the church in the corner somewhere, you know. We were led right up to the front and sat right across from the family, you know. And afterwards, we spoke, and you know, I couldn't imagine that I drank and hated this guy for 18 years, and Alcoholics Anonymous and the work that I did in here allowed me to be compassionate for him when he lost his wife, you know, and my amends were accepted, and my amends were made and accepted. I thought that was pretty damn miraculous. Then I just stayed close with him as a friend that had just lost his wife, not a guy that owed me money. Just a friend that had lost his wife. I just stayed there for him, you know, and things, our relationship got better and better. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a movie on TV on a Friday night about that old band that I used to be with, you know, and I had a little part in it, you know. I actually gave this guy some footage that I had as part of my amends, not asking for any money or anything. I said, here, you know. And right now that record is #2 on the charts. I mean, I just can't believe it. Something that's 30 years ago is so well received by the world right now. And we're talking about some stuff, you know. And the miracle of this whole thing is, I thought I was a loser. I drank at the wrong person. Almost gave my life up with drugs and alcohol because of the way I felt, and the way I felt was wrong. I was wrong. So I finally, through this program, the help of a sponsor, through everything, I wrote this guy a letter, and he read the letter, picked up the phone, called me immediately, because the letter was all about love. It wasn't about you did this, you did that. The letter was, are you aware of just certain facts? And you know, today this guy, he calls me up, he was in tears. He said, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. He apologized. He said, how did you live with that for 25 years? And I went, wow, that's all I needed. It's like somebody lifted a weight off my shoulders, you know. And who knows, I might even get a check. That's none of my business. It's, I think I will, but it's none of my business. You know what, if you learn how to surrender everything and you just keep giving it to God, that's what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. We take our problems, say, you know what, I can't do this, but you can. Here. And that's what I've learned to do around here. So if you're new, the thing that we're going to ask you to do when you come in here, we're not going to say that you're wrong about the way you see life, even though you are. We're not going to tell you that, but we're going to ask you to take your ideas, everything that you think is set in stone, this is the way it is. Just take it, put it over here. Leave it there. Just leave it there for a little while and try our way. And if you do that, maybe you won't have to go back to those old ideas, because we're going to give you a new way to live here. And that's what happened for me, you know. I always like to end my pitch with the words of my grand sponsor, a fellow named Dr. Paul, who wrote page 449 in our big book, Dr. Addict Alcoholic. He wrote the page on acceptance. Dr. Paul, it was a year ago this week, or last week, that we lost him. He just passed away, and he was just a great, great, great guy. And he used to end his pitch by saying, you know, if you catch this disease, this is the only disease known to mankind. When you catch alcoholism, you become a better person because you've had alcoholism. Because it leads us to a spiritual path for the solution. You don't get that with any other diseases. So if you're here tonight, I hope you can catch alcoholism so you can get this spiritual awakening as we get by the result of these 12 steps, you know. And all we have to do to keep this thing is to give it away. That's a pretty good deal. You don't get that with any other diseases either. You get it, you give it away. You get to keep it. Beautiful, huh? Now we get to the tricky part. And all that this disease asks of us, in fact, it insists of us, is that we be happy, joyous, and free. I don't know about you, but that's, when I was new, that sounded impossible. I'm sorry, I can't be happy, joyous, and free yet. And in the beginning, I couldn't be happy, joyous, and free. But over the years of doing the work, the inventories, and the process of Alcoholics Anonymous, I finally figured it out. Happy, joyous, and free equals a life free of resentment, fears, and sexual problems. So there it is. That fourth step really is the key for me. That was the key. That was the thing that allowed me to get out of the stands and into the goddamn game. Give me my uniform. I'm tired of watching. I want in the game, and I feel like I'm in the game now, and I believe that my nightmare is over. I really do. I love this program. I love what I learned here. I love what you've given me, and I love being a part of it. Thanks for letting me come down tonight.